From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South, and I am Soini Gray. The ELN has freed 3 soldiers in an attempt to restart peace talks with Colombia's new government. The 3 soldiers were detained by the National Liberation Army in early August. On Tuesday, the insurgent group announced that it would release the detained in an effort to resume peace talks with the government. The Venezuelan embassy in Ecuador will create a special commission to assist migrants applying for the Return to the Homeland program. The commission will also help their citizens deal with attacks against them. A group of 90 Venezuelans are due to return to Caracas this evening.
We are confident that 70 to 80% of the migrants are going to return, as the economy will recover. Anyways, we want to denounce an international campaign aimed at presenting migration as a humanitarian crisis. A humanitarian crisis means war, general famine, or persecution. That is not the situation in Venezuela. Venezuela is dealing with an economic war. We're suffering attacks against our economy. We also want to denounce the xenophobia promoted against our migrants.
Our correspondent in Quito, Denise Herrera, has more.
Hello, yes, indeed, we are now outside the Venezuelan embassy here in Quito. Well, citizens of Venezuela are gathered. They are part of the government's Return to Homeland plan, a decision taken by President Nicolas Maduro after several allegations of xenophobia and discrimination to these citizens. We can see 2 buses that will take these people to the airport, and also the airplane will come back to Venezuela at 6 p.m. Also, the Venezuelan authorities confirmed that will be a meeting in Venezuela to discuss the situation, and also we discuss with the most representative countries around the region. So that is all we have for now. We will keep you posted as soon as we can. Back to you at the studio.
Thanks for that, Denise. Venezuelan migrants in Ecuador have criticized the xenophobia and their poor living conditions. Many are ready to return home.
A makeshift camp to the north of Quito currently houses nearly 50 Venezuelan migrants. This number varies, and many of those here wish to return home. They can't find work and living conditions are poor. The idea of a better life for them outside of Venezuela, an idea sold by the mainstream media, has turned out to be a lie for many.
This is why we have decided to return home, to fight and move forward in Venezuela.
Their situation becomes more complicated when there are children involved. Eneida arrived at this camp 10 days ago. She traveled with her 5-year-old daughter, leaving the rest of her children back in Venezuela.
I have children back home. I can't stay here in these conditions. I brought my little girl because she's the youngest, but having her here is too difficult.
Sadly, xenophobia is a real issue in a country that's supposed to have its doors open for migrants.
There's a constant media bombardment against migrants, which paints Venezuelans as people who are coming to take something away from Ecuadorians.
Ecuadorian society has started to react to the false idea that unemployment, poverty, and other social ills are caused by Venezuelan migrants. And yet, intolerance is being fought by Ecuadorians who recognize xenophobia.
We are defending the freedom of mobility for all people. We are all related, regardless of where we come from.
As many start to defend the rights of Venezuelans to freely move through the country, many of the migrants are ready to return home. In the next few hours, a plane will arrive in Quito to repatriate nearly 100 Venezuelans as part of President Nicolas Maduro's Return to the Homeland plan.
Dozens of migrants have lined up outside the Venezuelan embassy in Peru to apply for the Return to the Homeland program. Our correspondent in Lima, Jaime Herrera, tells us more.
People keep lining up outside the Venezuelan embassy headquarters in Lima. These Venezuelan migrants want to apply for the Return to Your Homeland program. They have different reasons to get back home. For instance, many say they have suffered xenophobia, poor work conditions. They've even been victims of human trafficking. Now they need to do an interview in order to be selected for the different flights organized by the Venezuelan government. Meanwhile, more and more people continue to arrive here to apply.
And we thank Jaime for that report. Now, the Organization of American States is holding an extraordinary meeting to discuss Venezuela. Venezuela says this is just the latest attempt at intervening into their affairs. Representatives from the International Organization for Migration and the UN High Commissioner for Refugees are also expected to meet. And Foreign Minister Jorge Arias will speak at the UN Human Rights Committee on September 11th. Arias will appear at the UN as it is said the Lima Group is pushing for a resolution to be passed against the Venezuelan government. The foreign minister could also meet the new High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet. And Guatemala has banned the head of the Commission Against Impunity, Ivan Velasquez, from entering the country. President Jimmy Morales expelled the UN mission over the weekend. According to Morales, the head of the commission is, quote, a threat to national security. The decision to expel the Commission Against Impunity has sparked protests. Social organizations have criticized the president for trying to derail the corruption investigation involving him. The public prosecutor of Sao Paulo has accused vice presidential candidate Fernando Haddad of corruption. He is accused of bribery while being mayor of Sao Paulo, but Haddad has denied any wrongdoing. The Workers' Party says this is part of a political persecution campaign against their candidates. And Paraguay has announced it will move its embassy back to Tel Aviv from Jerusalem. Paraguay's Foreign Affairs Minister made the announcement a little more than 3 months after the embassy was transferred to Jerusalem. In response, Israel announced it will close its embassy in Paraguay and recall its ambassador. Paraguay's new president, Mario Abdo Benitez, took the decision, citing his desire to contribute to peace in the region.
Paraguay wants to contribute to the intensification of regional and international diplomatic efforts in order to achieve a wide, fair, and lasting peace in the Middle East.
A military aircraft belonging to the United States will be tested in Ecuador. Ecuador's Vice Minister of Defense, Diego Gomez, has announced the tests will begin on Thursday. Gomez says the operation will increase the coordination of both countries in the fight against crime, but critics say Ecuador is giving up its sovereignty. Time now for a short break. More news in a few.
Acompañamos a los pueblos que resisten en cada una de sus luchas.
Somos esa ventana que se abre para visibilizarlos entre fronteras.
Thursdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. State workers have been demonstrating in Argentina's capital, Buenos Aires, in support of those fired from the state news agency, Telam. Our correspondent in Argentina, Edgardo Esteban, has the details.
The state workers are supporting the people who were fired from the state news agency, TELAM. The press unions are also mobilizing in Buenos Aires to bring awareness to the difficult situation that those fired are suffering. 357 workers were dismissed more than 2 months ago, meaning 40% of the agency's collaborators. There are still no answers from the government of Mauricio Macri. Demonstrators are asking the Federal Secretary of Public Media to respond. 5 people have been reincorporated, but they want to negotiate others to have the same opportunity. People reach the headquarters building of TELAM, and they will continue with their struggle until they receive answers from the authorities.
Hundreds of Argentinians have also protested against the government's decision to cut the budget for the health ministry. Health workers, union members, and political and social organization members protested outside the health ministry in Buenos Aires. As part of the ongoing austerity push, the government closed down 11 ministries and cut spending on public policy.
We are here demanding that the Argentine government gives us back the Ministry of Health. People who are suffering from chronic diseases can't live without a ministry. People with HIV, we need to have the guarantee of having antiretroviral in the country.
It's a very big change implemented by the government in the health sector. The lack of guarantees from the state on public health, a 25% cut in the personal budget, and also of all the essential services.
Argentina's peso has gained more than 1% and financial stocks surged on Wednesday. This comes just after government officials were in Washington seeking emergency funding to stem the economic crisis. Argentinian Finance Minister Nicolas de Giovni met the head of the IMF, Christine Lagarde, in Washington on Tuesday. They were expected to talk about new conditions for the fund to speed up payments on a $50 billion deal. But de Giovni couldn't provide many details, but said they are hoping for an improved bailout loan in the second half of September. And President Mauricio Macri has been accused of abuse of power over the agreement he signed with the IMF. Macri and his ministers are accused of violating the Constitution by not seeking congressional approval for the loan. The state prosecutor presented the case in court and said that it's now up to the judiciary to rule if it will suspend the IMF agreement. And the purchasing power of retirees in Argentina has dropped 30% since Macri took office in 2015. A report from the National University of Avellaneda found the austerity measures and the currency devaluation could be responsible. Retirees are now earning around $150, which is close to what they earned during the economic crisis of 2001. The national dialogue is underway in Honduras to resolve last year's controversial presidential election. The talks are beginning after 9 months of failed attempts. A United Nations representative says each side is equipped with delegates committed to international mediation, and each committee is expected to present solutions at the end of the dialogue period. Students at the National Autonomous University of Mexico are striking after violent groups attacked them on Monday. 2 people were seriously injured during a peaceful demonstration. Students are demanding the university ensures their safety on campus. So far, 18 members belonging to these groups have been expelled from the university. The demonstrations are occurring at the 50th anniversary of the Tlatelolco student massacre approaches. On October 1968, a student demonstration was violently suppressed, leaving around 400 people dead. Over 1,300 protesters were arrested. Bolivian President Evo Morales has blamed Chile for unilaterally suspending a meeting to discuss the marine border issue. Morales expressed his disappointment over the cancellation of the meeting, which was agreed to by both sides. Bolivia had asked to negotiate sovereign access to the Pacific Ocean. For generations, both countries have been fighting over the border. In 2013, landlocked Bolivia filed a case at the International Court of Justice demanding that Chile grant access to the ocean.
Chile, unfortunately, has a policy of delay These meetings were planned ahead from both the sides. Why so many commitments? Why there have been so many offers and even OAS resolutions for Bolivia to get a sovereign corridor to the Pacific Ocean? They make us believe and then suspend any treaty that needs to continue and have results. This suspension of the meeting has surprised me.
And Bolivia will have a new universal healthcare system by 2019. This new system will provide free medical care for every citizen. The National Treasury will fund the insurance plan. This initiative comes after an extensive debate with social movements, institutions, and the health sector. Almost 2 years after signing of the peace accord between the Colombian government and the FARC, Cuba has pledged 1,000 medical scholarships to underprivileged Colombians, including former FARC members.
A second group of medical scholarship beneficiaries were seen off Tuesday by several officials, including FARC President Rodrigo Londoño, to fulfill an offer from the Cuban government, which was initially made during the Colombian peace talks.
It is a gesture for the construction of peace in Colombia. The Cuban government granted young Colombians 1,000 scholarships, 500 for the FARC and 500 for the government. We are now sending off the second contingent of 147 to join the 186 who are already there.
According to the Cuban embassy, the scholarships are granted to former combatants and any Colombian young person from deprived backgrounds.
The students come from different social backgrounds. There are 22 former combatants, 13 indigenous people, Afro-Colombian students, young people from social movements, young people coming from zones affected by conflict, children of former military officials, and a former police officer.
For Haiti, a former FARC combatant for 7 years and a victim of the armed conflict as a child, studying medicine is not only a personal achievement, but also a step forward for the Colombian people.
I like the social work. I am going to study medicine because there is a big health problem in Colombia. The FARC has the same objective of working for society. We are going to study not for personal gain, but to come back to Colombia and say, come here. There are a lot of people here who need health care.
Mauricio, one of the victims of the armed conflict, says the peace accord enables the building of a new country and calls on President Duque to support the peace process.
I represent the Colombian countryside, where the state comes with glyphosate. I prefer this peace process that saves lives and enables us to be physicians, to help people. President Duque, peace is not made with glyphosate, but by protecting lives, this is what the peace process means.
Next Friday, family members of former military officials, a police officer, along with others, will travel to Cuba to fulfill their dreams of becoming doctors.
The Chilean Congress has approved the gender identity law. The bill was passed with 26 votes. The new law allows trans people older than 14 years to change their name and gender on their IDs. Trans people will also be recognized by their chosen gender in public and private institutions. President Sebastian Pinero will have to approve the law within the next 30 days. Activists say this is a bittersweet conquer as it does not recognize the rights of trans children. And the LGBT community in Guatemala has protested outside Congress against a bill to prohibit same-sex marriage. The proposed bill also defines a family as being limited to a mother, a father, and children. Activists say the law could discriminate against the queer community if passed. Congress is also currently discussing a bill that could approve jail sentences of up to 4 years for women who have suffered miscarriages. This could also increase punishments for those who've had an abortion. We're going to take a short break now. World News is next.
The ruling world order has always subjugated the masses. But who are the actors behind every move? What are their real interests? We analyze every move on Critical Move. Weekdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. The China-Africa Cooperation Summit has concluded, and many African leaders praised the outcome. Earlier, we spoke to the Kenyan development economist, Anzetsi Weri, who gave us a global perspective with an African lens on the largest takeaways from the summit.
I think the first takeaway was that China made it clear it's going to monitor deals that it makes with Africa a lot closer. I think there have been questions by economists in Africa around the economic viability of some of the projects that our governments are getting into with China. And I think Xi Jinping made it clear that we're going to start monitoring these debts a bit more, which is very interesting, because one of the things that African governments really liked about China is that they weren't monitoring. They really liked the fact that the deals were very opaque and that they could get away with a lot in those deals. So the fact that China is now saying we're going to monitor a bit more, I think will cause some unease in African capitals, but I think African citizens are going to be very happy with that. And I think the second big thing is that some debt will be forgiven. We'll see the scale of the debt. We'll see which countries will qualify for that debt forgiveness.
And now let's have a look at some of the other stories making headlines around the world.
150 people were held at Perpignan airport in the south of France after flying in from Oran, Algeria. There were fears a child on board was suffering from cholera. According to Algerian health authorities, there have been more than 60 confirmed cases of cholera this month. Hundreds of Syrian refugees made their way back to their homes from Lebanon on Tuesday. Busloads of people were taken to Homs, Damascus and Hama provinces. One passenger said that he's been away from his home for 7 to 8 years.
My name is Israel Safadi. I am returning to my country. I am very happy. I spent 6 years here and I'm very glad that I am coming back to my country again.
At least 3 protesters were killed in the city of Basra in Iraq as mourners attended the funeral of 26-year-old activist who was killed at a demonstration the day before. According to official reports, the violence broke out during the funeral as people threw stones at the Iraqi forces who responded with tear gas and live ammunition. Typhoon Jebi in Japan has killed 10 people. It's the most powerful storm the country has faced in decades. An airport company had to transport around 3,000 stranded travellers by boats due to flooding. It's not known when the airport will reopen. Some roads and train lines remain closed.
At least 3 firefighters have been killed while trying to contain a deadly fire in Johannesburg, South Africa. One firefighter fell into the blaze while trying to save others. 13 people have also been seriously injured and taken to hospital. The fire broke out on the 23rd floor of the health department building. What caused the blaze is not yet known.
But I think I just want to give our deepest condolences. This is one of the most devastating things that ever happens in a city where we lose our firefighters or police officers. But EMS is out here in full force, together with our colleagues from the Gauteng department and also the paramedics from the private rescue institutes.
Somalia's food security has improved, but recovery remains fragile. And a report presented by the UN Food Security Nutrition Analysis Unit noted a major improvement in the country's food security, less than a year after Somalia overcame its worst drought in decades. However, a third of the country's total population is still in need of humanitarian assistance, and 1.5 million people still face a food security crisis. And a powerful magnitude 7 earthquake has struck Japan. According to the U.S. Geological Survey, the earthquake hit 112 kilometers southeast of Sapporo at a depth of 66 kilometers. It confirmed that the offshore earthquake has not caused a tsunami. We've come to the end of this news brief. For these and many other stories, you can find them on our website at telus4tv.net/English. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. For Tell Us Your English, I'm Sonia Gray. Thank you for watching.